seeds. And seeds are analogous to anything that causes people to become aware of you and form the intent to transact with you in some way. They might follow you on or connect with you on social media. They might become clients. They might want to do a partnership or a collaboration with you.
Welcome to Monday Mornings with Michelle, the new business podcast. Whether you're kicking off your day or kickstarting your business, Michelle is going to kick your ass into next week with the essential fours: strategy, systems, support, and state of mind. Now, welcome to center stage, Michelle Nedelec.
Hey there, peeps. This is Michelle Nedelec, and I am super glad that you're here with us today because I am here with my most amazing guest, Stu. Stu, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. I'm totally excited about this. So tell us who you are and a quick introduction to your business. What do you do?
My name is Stu Heinecke, and I have the craziest background you might probably ever hear of, because I'm a cartoonist. I'm one of the Wall Street Journal cartoonists. I'm also an author. I'm a marketer. I sometimes say in my bio that I was raised by wolves, because actually I wasn't.
So, why not just throw that in there?
But that's because I was mentored actually by some of the best cartoonists in the world, from Playboy and the New Yorker. Actually, at the very beginning of my career, it was great.
When I think cartoons, my brain doesn't just automatically go to Playboy, just saying. And I would think that my brain, small brains, would do that.
Well, yeah, they had great cartoonists. I don't know what they have now, but I don't even know if it's still in print, but anyway, I was mentored by all these great cartoonists from, let's put it the other way around, the New Yorker and Playboy. And I've written several books. Now, these books are, I would characterize them as the kind of books that I wished I had when I was 20 or in my 20s, because if I had them, my career would probably be different. Although all of the inspiration came from, well, let's say, the most recent book, How to Grow Your Business Like a Weed, came from driving down the Santa Monica Freeway while I was in my 20s and noticing a dandelion growing out of the crack in the concrete. And I just thought, geez, that's amazing. How does it? Well, we know how. I was going to say, how does it do that? But actually, we know how it. We know how it gets there anyway, because those seeds probe around. They fly around and probe every possible opportunity to take root. But on the other hand, there are no other kinds of. I mean, it's not. It's just weeds doing that. It's not. I don't know, polite plants. The things that we plant in our gardens. Or there's no oak trees growing out of the cracks in the concrete, or petunias or something like that. Because, quite frankly, they couldn't make it as a weed. They don't have what it takes to be a weed. And so I got really curious. What is it how are they doing this? Do they have a model, that sort of a unified model that they all use? And if they do, can we use it in our business? And the answer to those two questions is yes, they do have a model, and it is something we can apply to our businesses. So those are I also wrote another book earlier called How to Get a Meeting with Anyone. I've used my cartoons to break through to just about anybody, and got really curious about what everyone else was doing to break through and get meetings, and found that there's this whole shadow form of marketing that I had no name. So I called it contact marketing, in How to Get a Meeting with Anyone. And there's all kinds of really cool stuff that people do to get meetings, and it kind of gives you a superpower. So that's been I hope that explains what I've been up to.
No, but it's definitely the tip of the iceberg, and I love it. So, and I have to laugh because we were in Cabo, and normally Cabo San Lucas is kind of a desert, and even in the sidewalks, all of a sudden there's all these weeds popping up and growing profusely. And I'm like, really? Like, you can't grow over there, but you have to grow right in the middle of the road, which I thought was kind of awesome. So my kind of weeds just going, yeah, but I wanted their attention. I want to be in the middle of the road.
They go where they want to go. They're not asking us for permission.
Awesome. So just purely from my curiosity, we'll totally get into the business of the weeds. We'll get into the weeds of the business, one of the two.
Yeah, we'll just get in the weeds.
Is the whole cartoon thing. How did you get into that? Why was that kind of your passion and excitement?
I just, I don't know, just always had a love for cartooning. And Dare I say, I just have to say that. I mean, as a kid, my brothers and I used to sneak Playboys out of our father's dresser drawers. And so I would see Gahan Wilson's work and Eldon Dedini's work. We saw everything else, of course, but one
So
thing
meanwhile,
that,
your dad's going, I was reading the articles, and you guys are going, I'm just looking at the cartoons.
no, we're just reading the articles. Yeah, that's right. So, but I was just wondering, well, who are these guys? How do they do this? How do they come up with that? And there's really there's a lot to the, if it's done well, there's a lot to the art form, and there's a lot of leading the reader or viewer. There's really both, but leading the viewer to a place where you're headed one way, and then all of a sudden, boom, it flips on you, and but when it does, you're revealing a truth in a twist. It's just, they're amazing little devices, both just for reading and, I mean, for the sake of reading and enjoyment, but also for marketing.
I love it. So let's start with the getting in touch with anybody, anywhere through it. What was your secret sauce? Give us kind of the pillars or the teaser, if you will.
Oh, getting in meetings with anyone. I think it really boils down to this. Well, first of all, if you can't get meetings, you can't sell, you can't do, nothing happens in life if you can't get meetings. It's a very central
You need other
part
people
of,
to buy.
yeah, you can,
Yeah.
nothing happens actually. You will never make anything happen. So that's sort of, it's, it's just core to the human experience. We have to connect with people, but certainly we want to connect with the people who can change our lives or change the scale of our careers. And those people are generally, well, they're harder to reach, and some are just essentially impossible to reach. And so to reach out to someone like that, you have to, a few things. You have to have some good reason for reaching out. If there isn't one, then all of it is moot. But assuming that, then you have to get past. Well, you just have to stand out. You have to get past all the other people who are trying to break through, trying to get in touch with them, and stand out. Humanize yourself. And so if you do things that cause the people on the other end of these campaigns to say, who is this? Wow, I love the way you think. Then you've just made it through. You've made it through in a big way. And that's what content marketing is about. That's what my book is about, is how do you do that? I used my cartoons to do it, but people have used all kinds of really, really clever, audacious ways of breaking through in a way that causes the person on the other end to say, wow, we got to meet. We just have to do that.
Right. I love that. When I was doing executive coaching, I used to help people go through a plan where they would kind of give a gift, send an email, send a letter, like an actual paper letter, and then make a phone call, and just to kind of target stalking these people, going, just think of it as, throwing the rocks at the window, and you're just kind of getting their attention. And some of the gifts that we came up with were really quite unique. And it was, at first their ideas were a little mundane, like, oh, I'll send them a little kid's ruler and go, hey, what kind of measurements are you using in your business, and are they effective? And, it's kind of cutesy, it's kind of fun, and going on. What was one of the most fun or entertaining ones that you've used that kind of gave you a giggle?
Oh man. I have a video I could share actually with you. I think that might blow your mind, because when I send cartoons around to people, I know that the effect is very positive,
Yeah.
but I'm not there to see it, like and when we send anything to get someone's attention, we're not there to watch the actual reaction. And someone I sent, I'll cue this up while we're talking about it, but
Yeah.
I sent Billie Jean a contact device, and Billie Jean he's an Instagram marketing influencer. And so I just wanted to get his attention. Actually, all I wanted to do is just introduce myself, because I wanted to see if we could collaborate. And so I sent a pretty cool thing. It's a 4-panel cartoon, and it was personalized about him. And his assistant got it, and she said, this looks kind of interesting. I think it's unusual, and I think what I should do is film an unboxing video. So she did that, and I got to see the reaction finally. So
that's awesome.
If we can share screen, I'll
of course.
put it up right now. Cool.
And peeps, if you're not able to watch this video because you're watching it in a podcast right now, go to awarenessstrategies.com/blog and watch it.
Yeah, you're
Okay,
going to want to
cool.
watch this, not just hear it. Here it comes.
I usually wait till you get here, Bill, to show you your packages, but this one's pretty cool, and I'm too anxious to wait and show you. So, here's the reveal. If I can get the cap off. Read how awesome this is. The Tale of the Hired Gun. I ever tell you fellas the story of the Billy Kid? Yep, sure did. How about Wild Bill Jean? You mean the marketing miss from San Diego? At least 100 times before. Yep, you can say that again. Look at the back. I'm kind of in love with this guy. Mad respect.
So that's Billy's executive assistant, the one that we always, one of the many that we call gatekeepers. I think they're really more like talent scouts and VPs
Right.
of access. They also want to let the right people in, and they want to let interesting people through. So as long as they bring value. So as you can see, when I'm reaching, if I want to meet with you, you'll know it, and you're going to have fun.
Right?
So,
That was pretty fantastic. I mean, the wooden box, the whole thing, and it looked like the cartoon was laminated and like,
it
that
was
was pretty intense.
It's produced on 1/2-inch foam core. It's really cool stuff. So, yeah.
So now it's in his office and everybody gets to see it.
He's never throwing it away, I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah. So now, but this actually relates back to weed strategy, actually, and to the model. And I should explain what that is, if I may.
Of course.
Yeah. So the thing is, I mentioned earlier, I was wondering, do weeds have a unified model? And if they do, can we apply it to our businesses? And in fact, they do have a unified model. And I think it's actually, I would just call it weed strategy. I think weed strategy is the model for growing. It's actually the theory of everything about growing anything. So you can use it to, I'm using it to grow the book, actually. And it's amazing because, oh my God, things are coming out of this that I might not have done otherwise. I might not have thought of otherwise. And there's just a focus there that is very different than, let's say, the traditional book launch. And so anyway, but the model is that weeds all do the same thing. They all leverage a fierce mindset and unfair advantages against collective scale. And they do it according to a process that's well-honed. I mean, well-honed. It's millions of years old. It's really well-honed.
That's really
but it's also a
well-honed.
living process that can react to any situation and essentially evolve. It's the basis of their evolution. That's how they evolve around challenges. And so that ability, I was just showing you the cartoon, and it might get a little distracting, cartoons and growth strategy. But the point here is that that's one of my unfair advantages. And I just mentioned they leverage their a fierce mindset and unfair advantages. So there's a lot of focus in the weed strategy model for developing, well, really, I should say, cultivating and curating unfair advantages. There's some that we just have naturally, and there are others we can develop. And that's a big part of applying weed strategy for growth.
I love it. And most people say you have to have thick skin, but this sounds like it's totally different than that. This isn't kind of building up an outside layer. This is actually taking your innate skills and being able to bring them to the forefront. Yes?
Yeah, it is. I mean, you still have to have a thick skin.
Still have to have thick skin.
Still have to have a thick skin. Let's say you still have to be perseverant. But when I'm using that unfair advantage of reaching out and getting meetings with people quickly and people that change the scale of everything for me, I don't want to. Well, I mentioned earlier that I want to create the reaction of, my God, I love the way you think. We have to meet, but I just want to shorten up the cycle so that, I mean, we need to be perseverant, but let's also shorten up. It's nice to shorten up the cycle as well. Let's not have it take so long to come to fruition. And when you do that, then you start to, again, it's one of the many unfair advantages. I've got a bunch of them, and I think you do too. If you think about it, if everybody in the audience should be thinking about, what are my unfair advantages? Do I have any? And I'm sure you do, because if you don't, we won't stay in business long. But it's just one of my unfair advantages. A few. I mean, I wrote the book about it, so I'm an expert. I'm an authority on it. I'm the authority on it. But I'm also able to you can use all kinds of crazy, interesting methods of reaching out and connecting with people who can change everything about your business, about your scale. Or you can connect with people that you should be collaborating with, which is another big part of the weeds model. Operating at scale is another big part of it. And so, it's just one of those unfair advantages. I'm kind of curious when I say that. I'm wondering, and I'm not turning around the interview on you, but I'm just wondering if you were thinking about what your unfair advantages are, what comes to mind?
Ironically, it's because my mind's always in the gutter. And
Okay.
it sounds odd, but a couple of my podcasts, The Little Blue Pill for Business, is all about kind of that unfair advantage of humor, wit, sarcasm, and quick wit, which is rare and few people can appreciate it. And then there's also the happy to offend you, which is taking something that everybody else is going, you can't do that. And I'm going, oh, hell yeah, I can. Watch me. This is going to be a blast.
That's fantastic. I love it. I love it. You really we're both mischievous then, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, it helps. It's great.
Right.
It lights up the day every day. But so that's cool. I mean, you can see though that we can cultivate all kinds of really interesting unfair advantages. I'll just tell you a couple more of mine. When my cartoons appear in the Wall Street Journal, they are seen by 2.1 million readers. When I send a cartoon to someone, let's say to introduce myself, and I'm reaching out first to talk to their assistant, I often will call ahead and say, "Hi, I'm Stu Heinecke. I'm one of the Wall Street Journal cartoonists, and I'm calling because I'm sending a print of one of my cartoons. It's about your boss." Well, all of that is a totally unfair advantage,
right?
How do you compete with that? And so there's that. There's some really, we've got some really interesting, a really interesting alliance coming up with. I mentioned in How to Grow Your Business Like a Weed, I mentioned a new award. It's called the Total Weed Award. It could only come from a cartoonist, probably, actually. But
I love that. That's awesome.
But the Total Weed Award, and so I said in the book, I'm going to start it, and we'll use it to recognize particularly weed-like spread and growth among entrepreneurs and startups and VCs and small, let's just say business owners in general, but growth and audacious ways of growing. And so we're going to team up with the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center. That's going to become the home of the award. And,
wow, that's awesome.
We're turning it into a fundraiser for them. And so it creates an unfair advantage for them as well. And that's, I mean, a lot of times it's the alliances that we create, the collaborations that we put together that give us a huge unfair advantage.
Oh, I love that. You're going to have to keep me posted on that because my brain's already going a million miles as to how we can play with that and maximize it.
I hope I'm sounding like a total weed already.
Exactly. I love it. So what are some of the other kind of fun things? So somebody might be going, well, I'm not that artsy. I'm not that outgoing. I'm not that whatever. What are some of the other interesting kind of unique advantages people have had?
Oh, you mean to get meetings or just so? I mean, like if we go strictly back to the weed strategy side of all this, I think look, there are brands, or brand strength can be an unfair advantage. Designs, think of Ferrari or Dyson or Apple. I mean, their designs, their products are beautiful,
right?
And maybe even out of the future, with certainly Apple's, every time they come out with something, not a refresh of the version 14 of the phone, but when they come up with new products, they're astonishing. You look at them and go, wow, like, how does that work? That looks like it fell out of a spaceship or something. You might have out of a flying saucer or something, Yep. But they're very distinctive. People are aware of them, and it forms the intent to. Well, they want to get it. They want to get it in there. They would love to have it in their hands or on their desk.
Right. And do you have a methodology in your book of how people can discover what their own aptitude is?
Yeah. Well, there's an entire model within the book called the WEEDS model. It's an acronym for Weed Inspired Enterprise Expansion and Domination Strategies. But really, I had to make it fit, of course.
Of course.
So that makes sense. But really, we're looking at 8 levels, sort of the 8 levels of the weed plant itself, or most weed plants themselves. So it starts with seeds or seed strategy, and then seed pod strategy. So let's talk about this real quickly. There's seeds, and seeds are analogous to anything that causes people to become aware of you and form the intent to transact with you in some way. They might follow you on or connect with you on social media. They might become clients. They might want to do a partnership or a collaboration with you. There are all kinds of ways that people can do that, but they first have to become aware of you. So you want to pop a lot of, just like weeds, just like watching dandelions, they pop a lot of seeds out and they fly all over the place. They're highly mobile seeds. They're not like acorns or pine cones. They don't just drop, but they just almost take on a life of their own, and they fly around and probe every possible opportunity to take root, which is a great analogy for our own seed strategy. We should be doing the same thing. We should be taking root in a lot of people's minds, or we're not. Again, we're not. I mean, that's one of the unfair advantages we can create. And then seed pod strategy is it's about borrowing the network of others to multiply the reach of the seeds. And I suppose we're doing that right now, because I'm reaching your audience. And once you release once you release this episode, then I'm going to be putting it out to my audience. So we're doing, this is a seed pod strategy for both of us. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it does.
And so it goes all the way down the plant through thorn and segmentation and rosette and vine strategy. I'll come back to vines especially, but vine strategy, root strategy, and soil strategy. And so, for example, in vine strategy, it's about creating collaborations with really it's about borrowing the infrastructure of others to reach dominant access or create dominant access to, I guess you could call it sunshine. That's what we need. We need we need sales. We need to be able to connect with a lot more people. We need to, if we can work with partners to open up new sales channels to us anyway, new sales channels, all the better. And that's how we grow. That's how we multiply our growth. So all of those, and I just described, for example, a vine strategy or an outcome of a vine strategy with NASDAQ, and that's going to be amazing it'll be great for NASDAQ, and it'll be great for me and the book, because we'll have a media partner. It's going to do a lot for the book. So that becomes an unfair advantage. And so there are a lot of ways that they can take shape. And finally, I might just say that maybe one of the most important forms of unfair advantage for us to have, if we're working in a business to business setting anyway, is the ability to confer unfair advantages to our clients. Isn't that kind of interesting? So when I create a campaign, for example, through my agency to help a client get more meetings, I've just conferred a new unfair advantage to them and on their operation. And that's probably one of the biggest unfair advantages that we could cultivate in our own businesses.
Is being able to do that for our clients and extend that reach.
Yeah, just to have that ability to do. I mean, you do that for your clients through coaching.
Absolutely. So give us an example of one of your Cinderella stories, one of your clients.
Well, you mean from a weed strategy standpoint?
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, I think, well, first of all, I interviewed a lot of interesting people, because I actually started with gardeners, because I needed to know what's the nature of weeds? What are they? Right. And then botanists and weed scientists. I didn't know there were weed scientists, but there are. And then also all kinds of people from the business world, from just a lot of personalities whose name you'd know, and then a lot of experts in all ranges of fields. I mean, one of the more interesting people that I interviewed was Kathy Ireland, and so Kathy, maybe some of the audience doesn't know who she is or doesn't remember her, but she was a model for a swimsuit model for Sports Illustrated early on in her career, and I don't know how many. I don't know. She became a high fashion model, a supermodel, and that doesn't typically last very long. So it's maybe it's a career that maybe is good for 10 years or so. And then she thought, okay, I need to rebrand. I need to rethink this. I need to pivot. What else can I do? How can I use what I have in a new way to create much more scale? And so I think maybe the audience is aware of her branding empire. That's where she pivoted to is, look, I can use my name and my likeness now because millions of people know me and use it to lend credence to products. So I'm going to help magnify brands. And so Kathy Ireland Worldwide is just this amazing operation that she has where she's branding all these products and bringing them to all kinds of platforms or I should say sales channels to explode their scale. She's a total weed. She is.
I don't know if she wants to be referred to as total weed, but
she'll be okay with it.
Makes a fantastic total weed.
But she is
best
a total
looking
weed
weed you'll ever have.
Oh, I am so impressed with. She's one of the sharpest people I've ever spoken to.
Nice.
So, and I also met with. Now, here's a name that I don't know. Tell me if you even know him, because I don't know. Maybe it's too long ago. But T. Boone Pickens.
No.
Okay, so T. Boone. He was one of the original corporate raiders. So he would make runs at oil companies mostly,
yep.
And it was, his story is fascinating. He became a billionaire, an oil billionaire, and he started out with this little company. Actually, really started out working for Phillips 66, and said, "This is way too bureaucratic for me." And so he went out and started his own oil exploration company, or oil company, I should say. And they were drilling wells. You got to keep. Discovery of deposits is key. And so, and then that builds the reserves held by a company. And he thought, this is really crazy that I would go out and this is like Russian roulette. I have to keep paying these crews and pay for all this equipment to drill these holes. But there are companies out there that already have these reserves. So instead, why don't I just go drilling for them? And so he made a run at the first company he made the run at 28 times the size of his company, and he had investors behind him. And he went out and he just bought them up without them even knowing. He just bought up their stock and took over the company, and it immediately multiplied the scale of his company by 28 times or 28x. That's pretty cool. Then he started going after the other big oil companies in the same way. Now they eventually. They sort of caught on to his game. So he was very secretive about it. And he'd buy up stock from under different identities, but they'd catch on and then they'd try to block him. Well, the thing is, when word got out that T. Boone Pickens was trying to take over, let's say, Unocal or Phillips 66, all of a sudden the stock price went way up. And all the investors made a lot of money from it, but so did he, because he bought at the lower price, and then by making a run at the stock and running up in price, they made millions of dollars, even though they weren't able to take over the company. T. Boone Pickens was a total weed as well, but he was really.
I bet a lot of people referred to him that way.
Well, and the thing is, he was a billionaire, and I don't know many billionaires, so. I think what's interesting about billionaires is they don't think in the same way that we do. They don't think in terms of, let's say, gaining market share. They think in terms of taking over the entire market. And so to hear him talk is amazing. So,
nice, I love it.
But anyway, a lot of people.
Somebody else to watch on YouTube. That's awesome.
Well, there are a lot of people though that are out there that are really who some of the total weeds are right now, much more current.
Yep.
Elon Musk. And Starlink. Absolutely. Sorry, not Starlink, but SpaceX. What a story! We all know. We all remember when they'd shoot those boosters. First of all, they're trying to do something nobody else had done. They're going to shoot up these boosters, deliver something into orbit, and then bring the booster back down and land it propulsively. We saw that in movies, but nobody had ever done that. No states, no state governments, no countries had ever done that. No, national space programs had ever done it. And so he'd shoot the Falcon boosters up, and they'd come down, and they'd be trying to land them, and they'd keep exploding, they'd keep crashing. So it's this system or process of of try, fail, try, fail, try, fail, try, succeed. And suddenly they're doing something that no one else can do. What a huge unfair advantage. So we got really used to it. I mean, I think maybe people in the audience might be thinking, yeah, but the Falcon booster, that's kind of, yeah, of course they go up and land. It was only a few years ago that they even started it, and now they've been using boosters. I think so far the highest number is something like 11 times.
Wow.
So wow, that's 1/11th of the cost of putting stuff into space, or payloads into space. Otherwise, that's
and the ability to be able to clean up the mess that we've been making for the last 70
well,
years.
there's that. If you're talking about all the debris up there, wow, that's a new one. That's
Right?
coming.
That one freaked me out when I heard about that one. But
Yeah.
but to your point, I mean, it's this innovation and this weed of doing things that nobody else has the tenacity to do or the wherewithal to do, that allows us to then be able to take advantage of it in ways that I'm sure even Elon wasn't thinking about. It's like, oh, that wasn't my intention, I'm going over here. But as we watch him, we're like, oh, hey, that'd be awesome. And I think so many of these weeds, we have the ability to be able to figure out what our tenacity is, what our unique proposition is, as we're watching people kind of give us permission or go before us.
Yeah, well, just watching what Elon did with the Falcon booster system, and he's doing it now with Starship. Is he's creating huge unfair advantages. They can't be matched. They can't. I mean, they can't be matched by Russia. They can't be matched. They're not being matched by Blue Origin. They're not. No one's matching it. So it's a completely. By the way, when I say unfair advantage, what I'm really talking about is what competitors. That's what competitors would say if they were describing your advantage. It's just totally unfair, but it's not totally unfair. It's really clever, and it's the smart way to do business. And certainly, it's what a big part of what amplifies your growth or allows you to grow. One of the things that I think is also really fascinating about weeds is that because we're going into this time of we're in a recession. I mean, some might like us to believe that we're not, but if you have two quarters of negative growth, we are in the textbook definition of a recession, and perhaps it'll get a lot worse. Well, recessions are driven by fear and feelings of scarcity, right? I mean, we pull in everything. We don't want to spend money on anything. But I think actually, I think about the nature of weeds. They thrive in disrupted ground. That's what they're looking for. I mean, that's where they make their greatest gains. And it says to me that weed strategy is probably the way to turn recessions into a time of huge opportunity. Isn't that amazing? And so, I mean, again, what weeds deal with what is. So they don't pity themselves. They don't say, well, I was entitled to this, or I thought I was going to have that. Well, how come I don't? They don't let stray emotions get in their way. They never do anything without an unfair advantage. We've been talking about that. They never do anything alone. If you see one dandelion in your lawn, look up. You'll see lots of them, because they don't show up alone. They show up en masse, and that's what makes them so hard to deal with. So they never do anything alone. They always focus on what makes them win, which is that element of process. So yeah, I mean, I think that's what's. I'm kind of excited about the recession because of weed strategy.
Right? I love your enthusiasm about all of this. And I totally get that the stumbling block somebody might be having right now, if they're thinking and they're buying into that whole recession idea, it has been proven since the dawn of time that you have more opportunities during a calamity or whatever than you ever would have had otherwise. It's kind of like, to your point, if everything's thriving and growing, then the weeds have no room to come into play. But if all of a sudden there's a drought, then the weeds are like, yes, this is fantastic. And as entrepreneurs, I think we have that weed mentality, and I love helping people to embrace it. So if you're buying into that idea that it's, oh, woe is me and the world's coming to an end, I think it's a fantastic opportunity to be able to get a hold of you and just see things from a totally different perspective. I am loving this. So I know our listeners are going to want more from you. How do they start that journey? How do they get a hold of the book? All that fun stuff.
Well, the book that we've been talking most about is How to Grow Your Business Like a Weed. And then we also talked about about elements from how to get a meeting with anyone. So both of those books are available actually anywhere books are sold except the airport. So we can, and then, pardon me. And then I would love to hear from you on LinkedIn. If you heard me on Michelle's podcast, I'd love to hear from you and we can connect there. Or you can go to my site, my author site, which is stuheinecke.com. And you can sign up and get the first 2 chapters of how to grow your business like a weed for free by signing. You'll be signing up on my list too. I would love that. But come and visit. Got great stuff. I didn't wear one today, but we've got great merch. Because if you can imagine, I'm still a cartoonist at heart.
Right.
So we have some really cool T-shirts. There's one that's a Chief Weed Officer T-shirt and Total Weed Award T-shirt and so on. So anyway, but stop by my author site as well.
Love it. So Stu, we'll have all of your links, of course, in the show notes, as well as your LinkedIn. And do you have Amazon links? We'll get that from you later. We'll put those in there too.
Yeah.
Because we love affiliate links personally, and we want to be able to get you as much credit as possible. That is awesome. So I have to ask you, at what point in life did you know that you were a special kind of crazy enough to think that you could become an entrepreneur?
I took an aptitude test in high school, and it said that I was probably best suited to become an entrepreneur. Well, I didn't know what that was then. I didn't know the word. I thought it seemed like stenographer or something like that. I don't want to do that. That's not me. But so that might be the first time my dad was an entrepreneur, and I just like running my own stuff. I don't know. I love having the freedom to pursue the stuff that I think is just so interesting and fascinating. And you only get to do that as an entrepreneur.
Right. I totally agree. So in your entrepreneurial journey, do you have an example of maybe a mistake that you made that you can laugh at now, or something that might have been embarrassing, but it's really funny to you now?
Well, there's some typos that have shown up in campaigns and were not so hot. But I mean, I think actually I'm just going to go back to the weed stuff, because I'm just going to say that, as I was writing the book and then and then editing and rewriting, I'm thinking, man, I've been making so many mistakes. So one of them is that I think I mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned or not, I run a small agency, and we help sales teams break through to their top prospects. And we do that with these big cartoon pieces. I call them big boards. And so, it's really cool stuff, and it helps helps them get through. It's really cool to watch. I'm thinking, I just gave them an unfair advantage, all that stuff, all that's happening, all that great stuff. But, I'm the creative director of the agency. Essentially, that's what I am. And so when we have a campaign, I'm the one writing it. I'm the one creating. It's all my creative. And then when we're producing them, I should show you one. So
yeah. So not only so when somebody gets to work with you, so they don't really have to find their own unique, they just get to write on yours.
That's true. Yeah. So here's one. This is a big board.
Yep.
And so it's 18 by 24 inches. It has a cartoon that's about the recipient. I'll come back to that. I'll explain what that one is. But then branding and a message from the sender to the recipient explaining who they are, why they want to meet, and next steps. And that goes out in packaging that looks like this. Looks like something that came out of maybe a cartoon art gallery.
Yeah.
FedEx bill, air bill goes right there. And it's in there, well protected. And so, I mentioned the cartoon. So here, this one, this is one of my favorites. It's just 2 women having coffee. This is one of mine, by the way. I have cartoons by a lot of cartoonists, but my image mate. But this one's one of mine, and she's telling her friend, let's say, I sent one of these to Mark Cuban. So the one I sent to Mark, because I have to personalize it. They're always personalized. So on his, she's saying to her friend, Mark Cuban says, you can tell a lot about a person just by looking at their Mavs tickets. I tend to agree. He's the Mavs owner. So of course he agrees.
Exactly.
And if you're going to send something to someone to say, hi, I want to introduce myself and I'd love to meet with you, you should send something that is just utterly fascinating, something they're never going to throw away. Right. And so, in fact, that one is up on Mark. It's framed and it's up on Mark's wall in his office.
Nice. I love
So,
that.
but what I'm saying to you though, because I was starting to answer your question. I've built I have way too much one-to-one leverage in my business. Way too much. I'm part of the deliverable stream, which is a bad thing. It's a really bad sign. And then when we produce those big boards, well, I'm all about. I want to put something in someone's hands that they've never seen before. So something that just is astonishing on every level. And that part of that is just, how did you do this? Where do you get these? How do you do,
Right?
So, but what I'm doing is I'm really prototyping. I'm using that's actually indoor signage technology that I'm using, and it's personalized. I mean, indoor signs are not personalized, but we applied personalization on the duplex personalization, both sides, and we're sending an indoor sign to someone to get their attention. So I'm prototyping everything. Everything that we do is a prototype, also not scalable. So I've been fighting my own scaling of my business. And so I think that's probably, I think everyone listening can probably, they might be thinking to themselves right now, they should be thinking to themselves, my God, how am I leaving one-to-one leverage hanging in my operation? Because if you have, well, the weeds are saying root out every possible, everywhere that there is one-to-one leverage, get rid of it and start moving to multi-channel and then collective scale. So start creating collaborations, get out of the way of the deliverable stream, or you will prevent your business from ever growing.
Absolutely. So absolutely get a hold of Stu now before he figures out how to scale out thing. Although I'm sure in the
I'm
scaling
already doing
process,
it.
you'll
No,
do
I'm already
fabulous
doing it.
too.
The weeds, I mean, it's had a profound impact on how I do business.
Nice.
So I'm already doing it.
I love it. Sue, you are absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it immensely. I know how valuable it is.
I so appreciate your having me on your show. I know you're really careful about who you have on as a guest, and I just appreciate that that you had me on.
I love it. Any last words for our peeps?
Man, you just got to be a total. If you're going to do anything, just be a total weed out there, but also
Such
have
a
a
weed.
whole lot of fun. I think if you're having fun doing what you're doing, it makes it much easier.
Awesome. I love it. Peeps, this is Michelle Nedelec. Thank you for being here with us today. Be sure to subscribe to the show or join us on our Facebook group, Business Ownership Secrets to Scaling. I'd love to connect with you and help you grow your business. Thank you for listening to our show. I'm all about being a resource center for entrepreneurs to give them the information and the support that they need to make it in business. As such, the notes for this show can be found at our website at awarenessstrategies.com/blog. Be sure to subscribe, give us a rating, I like 5 stars personally, and share with your friends.